Colombia hosts the fourth summit between the Community of Latin American Caribbean States and the European Union in the city of Santa Marta. In Honduras, the presidential candidate Rixi Moncada addressed the people and denounced once again her opponent's plans to use fraud to influence the country's election process to be held November 30th. And U.S. President Donald Trump demanded that senators eliminate the program known as Obamacare, a measure that would directly affect the lives of millions of people. Hello, welcome from the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. And Colombia hosts the fourth summit of Latin American Caribbean states and the European Union in the city of Santa Marta. The meeting is being held at the Santa Marta Convention Center and will continue until next Monday. The objective of this activity is to establish lines of cooperation between the blocs, as well as to review common bi-regional problems that require a roadmap and coordination to achieve positive results. Colombian President Gustavo Petro emphasized that Europe, Latin America, and the Caribbean must unify their criteria for denouncing any barbarity that goes against the principles of multilateralism and global democracy.
And what is freedom today? What is democracy today when there are bombs being dropped in Gaza, and even now bombs are being dropped, and a country like this has been massacred? And now there are missiles being launched in the Caribbean. The same manufacturer of the ones that are dropped in Gaza are being dropped here over poor people. In this city, one died.
And during his speech at the fourth EU CELAC summit, President Gustavo Petro reiterated the status of the Caribbean as a zone of peace and remembered the history of Latin America as the heart of the independence process in the region.
The Caribbean century of light brought independence to America, to the north, to the south, and to the center. This is a sea of democratic revolution.
And earlier during a press conference, Colombian Foreign Minister Rosa Villavicencio reaffirmed her rejection of war and her commitment to respecting sovereignty for this fourth high-level meeting.
There is support in the rejection of all types of war, all types of disrespect for sovereignty, but above all, in its participation in the major initiatives we have as a region that have to do with energy transitions towards clean energy, closing the digital divide, and addressing the issues of climate change, values shared with the European Union.
And in Ecuador, the National Assembly authorized the government of Daniel Noboa to use public funds for the campaign of the constitutional referendum that seeks to allow the establishment of foreign military bases in the country. In this way, the legislature aligns itself with the executive's plans in its campaign for the yes vote ahead of the referendum on November 16. The consultation seeks to eliminate the constitutional prohibition that prevents the installation of foreign military bases in the country, a measure that has generated strong opposition. Social organizations have denounced that the initiative represents a surrender of national sovereignty to the United States and warned that the ecosystem of the Galapagos Islands is at risk. In response, a broad alliance of social collectives and the Citizens' Revolution are already organizing the campaign for the no vote across the country. And moving to Nicaragua, co-president Daniel Ortega affirmed that the peoples of role face a weakened U.S. imperialism as a common enemy. The commander's statements were made during the ceremony held to promote General Commissioners of the Ministry of the Interior, as well as to pay tribute to the 49th anniversary of the passing of Commander Carlos Fonseca. Also, the heads of the Nicaraguan executive reaffirmed their commitment to continue building a better revolution in the world, aimed at giving dignity to the peoples despite the constant threats from the North American government. On the other hand, the leader reflected the position of several allied governments in Latin America that seek cooperation with China as an alternative for development and a way to challenge Washington's historical interference in the region.
We are witnessing a period in which it has become an enemy, no matter how much military power it had. No matter how much economic power it had, has disappeared, has been diminished, has been discredited, has been weakened. And in the meantime, other forces have been growing, and among these forces, the People's Republic of China stands out.
La República Popular China. We have our first break coming up. Remember, you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We're going to be right back. Welcome back. In Honduras, the presidential candidate Rixi Moncada addressed the people and once again denounced her opponent's plans to use fraud to influence the country's elections process to be held on November 30th.
They made a very dark plan, but we figured it out. We took their 26 audios. They have been discovered. They only need to be called to a trial and be condemned because they wanted to steal again the democracy.
Meanwhile, also in Honduras, an electoral drill is being held ahead of the general elections on November 30th. This Sunday's general drill is a crucial test to verify the logistics of the elections that will be held throughout the country in November. The day will include opening polling stations, registering voters, counting preliminary votes, and sending voting records in real time. More than 6.5 million Hondurans are called upon to cast their vote to elect a new president, 128 members of the National Congress, and other political officials. In other topics, on Saturday, thousands of Venezuelans took to the streets and squares of communes across the country to form the Bolivarian Basic Committees. With the noise and color that characterizes the mobilizations of the South American nation, the installation of these structures created by the Bolivarian Revolution began. The activity, which continues on Sunday, consolidates this comprehensive tool for organization, production, and social defense, while unifying the political, economic, and cultural dimensions of the communes. This event will reinforce the foundations for the celebration of the fourth consultation of the communal project on November 23rd, and these structures will also guarantee its security and integrity.
We are still renewing our United Socialist Party of Venezuela. According to the instructions of our leader Diosdado Cabello, we are going to give it a boost, a reboost, after the attacks we have been receiving for more than 20 years from the empire. And not just the American empire, but the great empires of the world. From England, from Europe, which has always wanted to take away our identity.
I am here participating in the election that has been planned since the 5th Congress of the CELAC-EU, in which nominations will be made from the grassroots for integration into the new political movement, in the construction of the party's new political structure.
We are here for that reason, as you say, to renew the old structures we had within the CELAC-EU, which, although they were not bad, we have to renew. And to show it is important to show the world and show the empire that we are here, that our revolution is not a president, it is not a minister, it is not a civil servant, we are a united people who have consciousness.
And U.S. President Donald Trump demanded senators to eliminate the program known as Obamacare, a measure that would directly affect the lives of millions of people. The Senate, meeting over the weekend in response to the serious national situation caused by the government shutdown, has been asked by the head of state to eliminate the program and redirect the funds so that direct payments can be made. In addition to not accompanying the suggestion with any form of oversight or audit, the president could increase the number of people without health insurance, which is already significant. Some Democrat lawmakers have rejected the suggestion, mainly because he is making it in the midst of the longest government shutdown in history, where hundreds of thousands of federal workers do not have the resources to purchase basic foodstuffs. In Palestine, the Gaza Health Ministry updated the total of fatal victims from the Israeli genocide, surpassing 69,000 people. The official total of fatal victims now stands at 69,169 people. This figure was reached after adding deaths from various causes, such as unregistered burials or bodies under the rubble. The figures detailing the thousands of Palestinians killed by the Zionist aggression reinforce the international demand for a permanent ceasefire and the immediate end of the siege that has turned the Gaza Strip into an extermination camp. Despite the ceasefire in effect since October 10th, the death toll continues to rise. In the last 22 hours alone, hospitals in the enclave have recorded 241 new deaths from Israeli attacks, with 614 injured. Rescue teams have managed to recover bodies of 522 people from the rubble. We have our second break coming up. Remember, you can join us also in Facebook at teleSUR English, where you can follow our live broadcasts and stay up to date on the latest events happening around the world. Hit that subscribe button, activate the notification bell to stay updated on all the news. We're going to be right back. Don't go away. Welcome back. An international team of scientists has warned that the world's penguins could be at risk from the combined effects of extreme weather.
Some of Earth's most loved creatures, but they face increasing threats from the combined impact of extreme climate events. That's according to a new study that shows all 18 species of penguins in the southern hemisphere may be vulnerable on our changing planet. The study, published in Global Change Biology, analyzed 3 decades of ocean and atmospheric data from 1993 to 2023.
In this study, we don't see like a direct effect on penguins, like how extreme events are shaping the life of penguins, because we don't have like this type of data. Like, for instance, to see that, we would need like population trends or breeding success. So what we aim here was to using penguins as sentinels of the southern hemisphere. With sentinels, I mean that penguins are important by itself because they are charismatic species and they are affected by extreme events, but they can also highlight areas that are important for many other species. For instance, penguins living in Antarctica, they also live in a really unique environment, and all the other species living there, like krill or many benthic species, are also affected by these extreme events. So our aim was to see which areas in the southern hemisphere are ecologically important. So we know that because we are using penguins, and are also affected by a high degree of cumulative extreme events effect.
The study found that African, snares, emperor, Adlai and Galapagos penguins are the most exposed to these events. The scientists say it's a trend that's likely to continue as the planet warms, although some species may be more capable of surviving on the changing planet.
The interesting thing I would say about the Galapagos is that, yes, it is the one more affected when we look at the metrics, no? But also, when we look at the trends, it's the only penguin species that is not facing an increasing trend. So what this says to us is that actually this species kind of used to these extreme events somehow, or at least like it's not something new in their area. and so that makes the species like more capable to face these extreme events.
The solution, they say, is to identify high-risk areas, account for local human stressors such as fishing or tourism, and adopt flexible, adaptive management. Although the study authors say more work is needed to study the actual penguin populations, their research is a warning of what could happen to these lovable species if we don't take action.
And unfortunately, there's been little good news for glaciers so far in 2025. A series of reports all reach the same conclusion. The glaciers' climate change are melting and is going to continue doing so at alarming rates.
The year got off to a bad start for the world's glaciers. A major report published in early February showed climate change was melting the world's mountain glaciers faster than ever. They are now shrinking at more than twice the speed of the early 2000s, according to the study. Researchers said the world has lost more than 7 trillion tons of ice from mountain glaciers since 2000. In 2023, the world's glaciers lost more than 600 billion tons of ice. Some of the fastest melts are in Alaska, and the smaller glaciers in Central Europe, such as the Alps, have shrunk the most proportionally.
What are the ice sheets doing at the moment? And what does that tell us about them? And as I say, they're losing 400 billion tons of ice per year.
New research showed that even limiting global temperatures to 1.5 degrees Celsius under the Paris Climate Agreement won't protect many heavily populated coastlines. The study by an international group of researchers says the target should instead be closer to 1 degree to avoid losses from the polar ice sheets. According to Durham University's Chris Stokes, the lead author of the report, the massive ice lost from these ice sheets has quadrupled since the 1990s. He says that with current warming levels of 1.2 degrees above pre-industrial levels, the planet is losing around 370 billion tons of ice per year. The figures from the report are taken from the latest Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change Assessment. With migration already a thorny issue around the globe, scientists say sea level rise will in the future make the mass movement of people inevitable. A healthy glacier is considered dynamic, generating new ice as snow falls on it at higher elevations while melting at lower altitudes. The losses in mass at lower levels are compensated by gains above. As a warming climate pushes melting to higher altitudes, this process stalls. This lack of dynamic regeneration is the most likely cause behind the emergence and persistence of holes, seemingly caused by water turbulence at the bottom of the glacier, or by air flowing through gaps that appear inside the blocks of ice. As 2025 comes to a close, the alarming rate at which glaciers are melting serves as a stark reminder of the intensifying impacts of climate change. Reports reveal that mountain glaciers are shrinking faster than ever, and the loss of ice from polar regions continues to accelerate. Despite efforts to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius, the reality is that even this target may not protect vulnerable coastlines from rising sea levels. With mass ice loss projected to increase, migration due to environmental changes will become an unavoidable challenge. As we approach 2026, urgent action to curb global warming remains critical to mitigate further irreversible damage to our planet's ice reserves.
Like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net, and you can also join us on our social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For Telesur English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.